Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kirchhoff, and welcome to my YouTube channel. So today we're going to be talking about the Fantasy Football Week 1 wide receiver start or sit rankings. I'm basically going to be going over a comprehensive list of all 16 games and the top 2 receivers on each team. If I go ahead and don't mention a receiver that you were thinking about, go ahead and go to the comment section and ask away. But before we do that, let's go ahead and go to the page I don't like the most, but I'm just going to have to, say it out loud proudly. Thank you very much for all of those who have come out here and who have subscribed to my channel as of late. The growth is incredible. The community we're building is amazing. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed already. For those of you who haven't, and you're watching this video, this is maybe the third or fourth video you've seen of mine. Please go ahead, subscribe, because I'm bringing out content daily for the fantasy season in order to help your team. If you want to stay tuned and stay up to date, click the subscribe button. So without further ado, let's begin. Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. So before we get into this, I want to break down a couple things. So as I mentioned a little bit before, if I don't mention anybody, go to the comment section. But before we go and start asking questions in the comment section, I think yesterday and a little bit of this morning, I answered maybe like 150 plus questions, which is extremely tedious and honestly, some of them were really difficult. A lot of trade questions that stumped me for a couple minutes. So if you guys could do me a favor to make it a little bit easier on me, when you go to ask a question in the comment section, put your league size, so how many teams are in the league, put your scoring format, whether it's standard, half, or full PPR, and then go ahead and list. Let's say, for example, you're asking, okay, I have X and Y, who should I start, right? And then I answer the question, then you come back and ask, okay, well, what about this receiver? Just put everything comprehensively in one question. Like if you're starting a flex and you're wondering about 2 different running backs, put that extra wide receiver on there just so I can get it done within one question, so I don't have to keep coming back. It'll save me time, and it'll make sure that I don't have to keep coming after you guys to answer questions, unless you like to waste my time. I don't know. I'm just kidding. Anyway, so let's get right into it. The game 1 of this week is obviously, we've been going over this for the last couple days. The Atlanta Falcons versus the Philadelphia Eagles. This week I have Julio Jones as an absolute start. You have to. If you have Julio Jones on your roster, you have to start him every week, right? You took him within the second, third round. If you got him in the third round, bless your soul. But usually people take him in the second round. So you pretty much are forced to start him every week, no matter the matchup. And I think he's matchup proof because he's so good with Matt Ryan. On the other hand, Mohamed Sanu, I'm going to have to say he's going to have to sit this week. Of the potential wide receivers that are playing this week, all 16 teams, Mohamed Sanu, in my opinion, is not a great start. Same thing with Mike Wallace coming into this offense. He's going to be the number 3 receiver as the year continues, but because of the absence of Alshon Jeffrey, I think Mike Wallace might get a little bit more play time, but I don't see him being a huge part of this offense in order to help your fantasy team. The other, Philadelphia Eagle wide receiver, we have Nelson Aguilar. I thought about this for a while. Because of the absence of Alshon Jeffrey, who's going to get the biggest bump? It's either going to be Zach Ertz or it's going to be Nelson Aguilar. So I'm going to go ahead and say, of all the receivers that I'm going to talk about today, he's probably in the back end, but I would still consider starting Nelson Aguilar this week because, who else is there to throw the ball to? There's Zach Ertz, there's Corey Clement out of the backfield here and there, and then there's Nelson Aguilar. So I think Nelson Aguilar is the number 1 receiver this week for the Eagles, has an opportunity to produce fantasy-wise, and I would say go in and start him. Okay, so the next game, the shootout that I've been talking about, right? A lot of you have asked, Luck, Andy Dalton, Mixon, or, all these questions about this potential game. I think that there's a lot of uncertainty, to be honest, right? Obviously, you're going to start A.J. Green. Obviously, you're going to start T.Y. Hilton, right? Because A.J. Green's playing against a terrible secondary, and T.Y. Hilton is Andrew Luck's best friend, and they're just going to connect with each other and score as many fantasy points as they could possibly imagine, right? But the thing is, these number 2 receivers on the roster, right? We have John Ross and we have Ryan Grant. There is a potential and there is a there's a possibility, okay? It's entirely possible that John Ross scores a touchdown, right? Just because of his nasty speed, he can get over the top of this Colts defense. There's a possibility that he scores, right? But am I willing to take that risk comparatively to the 39 wide receivers that I'm going to be talking about to start this week? I don't think so. Okay, I'm literally going to be telling you to start 39 different people, right? So that gives you an idea. If you're playing in a 12-team league, there's 36 wide receivers that start, and then people will start wide receivers at the flex. So if I'm telling you 39 of them, I would probably start all of those guys over John Ross this coming week, even though I think this is going to be a shootout. Because John Ross, there's a little bit of uncertainty that perhaps he shows up and, has 6 targets, but only catches 1 ball for like 30 yards. And that's the end of his week. Ryan Grant, on the other hand, I don't know where he's going to be put into this offense, right? Is he going to be second behind Jack Doyle in receptions? Is Chester Rogers going to come in and take some? It just really depends. I think we'll have to wait until week 2 to determine how much Ryan Grant is going to be used in this Indianapolis Colts offense. So until then, I'm going to have to say he's going to be a sit for week 1 of the season. All right, so next game, right? We got the Bills versus the Ravens. I honestly think... Okay, so this is my mentality here. This is my perspective. I honestly think this is not going to be a shootout. This is going to be a slow-paced, run-the-ball kind of game with good defenses, right? But here's the thing. The Ravens probably have the better offense and the better defense here. So I'm full go-ahead on going ahead and starting Michael Crabtree this week. He is going to be the number 1 receiver for this team, and he's going to be productive. And in the red zone, he is a very talented wide receiver. John Brown, on the other hand, we saw a little bit of glimpses of him in the preseason, but we're just going to have to wait and see what kind of John Brown we get. John Brown, a couple years back, I think it was in 2015 or 16, he had 1,000 yards receiving for the Cardinals. If we can reestablish that kind of a John Brown, then in future weeks, we can consider to start him into good matchups. On the other hand, right, I'm going to say to start Kelvin Benjamin. Now, you might be thinking, Andrew, what are you doing? Why? Just hear me out, okay? Prospectively. Let's say, for example, right? We all know, okay? You and I both know, unless you're a Bills fan and you're in denial, Nathan Peterman is not a great quarterback, okay? I don't see the Bills coming out and being able to produce enough to where they have to, they have a lead at least, right? I think the Bills are going to struggle, especially against this defense. And I think in the second half, the game plan is going to switch. They're going to have to throw the ball a bunch, right? And who are they going to throw the ball to? Their number 1 receiver, Kelvin Benjamin. He's a big target. You just got to put it on him. I think Kelvin Benjamin can have a good week. He's not going to have a great week, right? But there is always potential for him to, make a play here and there. Broken play here, I like Kelvin Benjamin to an extent. Zay Jones, on the other hand, don't touch him. I only consider starting Kelvin Benjamin because he's the number 1 receiver of this offense, right? It's the same kind of logic I have with Nelson Aguilar. I wouldn't normally start him, but because I don't think there are any other receivers competing with them, they are going to get majority of the opportunity, majority of the targets, and that's what we want in fantasy. We want opportunity for our players. Otherwise, there's no point of playing them, right? Okay, anyway, so let's move on. All right, the Saints versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pretty simple here. Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, you must start them, right? Doesn't matter. And if you haven't already, I think there was a video I made maybe a month back, and I talked about, the benefactors of the Jameis Winston suspension. And you might be thinking, how is there a benefit to the Jameis Winston suspension? Well, with Ryan Fitzpatrick last season, Mike Evans averaged 10 targets per game. So there is a possibility that he's just going to be the only receiver that's thrown the ball to, So I like Mike Evans this week. The number 2 wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was announced to be Chris Godwin, which a lot of people speculated in the offseason. And I'm honestly surprised that they made the jump with him instead of keeping Deshaun as the number 2. But Chris Godwin, as of the preseason and late last season, he produced well. Fantasy-wise, this week I'm going to go ahead and say don't start him because of the Ryan Fitzpatrick issue. I don't know if that meant... they're going to have to throw the ball, right? But is Ryan Fitzpatrick going to throw it to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin? We'll just have to wait and see. Cameron Meredith, on the other hand, the second wide receiver for the Saints. As of right now, we don't know how implemented he's going to be with this offense. I think he's probably the third receiving target on this offense behind Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. And then there's possibilities that Ted Ginn gets involved. So I'm going to go ahead and say sit Cameron Meredith this coming week. Okay, so we got another. Okay, I'm telling you, this game is going to be a shootout. Okay, they did it last. I swear the Patriots played the Texans last season, if I'm not mistaken, and it was. I think Brady won on a last-second touchdown of Brandon Cooks. It was a good game. Okay, so obviously you have to start DeAndre Hopkins, and obviously you have to start Chris Hogan. Now you might be thinking, do I have to start Chris Hogan? Because a lot of people ask me in the last 24 hours, like, should I start X or Chris Hogan, right? And I'm always wondering why are people skeptical on Chris Hogan's talent? Like, he's going to be the number one wide receiver here. He's going to benefit from the Julian Edelman suspension. And he's really good. He's produced in the playoffs. In the Super Bowl, he had like 5 catches for 90-something. No, maybe it was 100 yards and a touchdown. Like, this kid is talented. Yes, he's fought with injury, and he battled with injury a lot last season. Missed, I think, 7 games last season during the regular season. But this year, I 100% believe in the talent and the opportunity that Chris Hogan's going to have. You should start him in your leagues. Now, here's the thing. Philip Dorsett is probably going to be the number 2 wide receiver in New England. I don't see him having much production. Majority of the other targets are going to go to Gronkowski, Burkhead, Michelle, and James White, and then maybe a little bit of Cordell Patterson, and then maybe he'll get a couple sprinkles of a couple targets. We'll see. But I don't see him making a huge impact, so I'm going to have to say sit Philip Dorsett this week. But here's the thing about Kyle Fuller, right? A lot of people like Kyle Fuller. As of right now, the max I would ever play him at is a flex position, and that's if, maybe I had McKinnon and it forced my flex running back to move to the running back slot, the starting running back slot, and I don't have anybody else to flex. Kyle Fuller's not a bad play because of his speed, because of what he was able to accomplish last season with Deshaun Watson. I think he's a decent flex play, but I don't want to for sure making him a start, because if I do, I don't know. I don't 100%, unless he scores that touchdown, he's not going to be like amazing. So I would go ahead and just, with precautionary measures, say sit him this week. Okay, so the next game, we got the Minnesota Vikings versus the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, this one was a little tough, right? I want to start Stephon Diggs 100%, Adam Thielen 100%. They're maybe the best 1 and 2 wide receiver tandem in the league. They'll prove it again this season, especially if Stephon Diggs continues to stay healthy. And then Adam Thielen's a little banged up right now. So that if that becomes an issue later on this week, I'll let you guys know. But other than that, I like starting both of them respectively. Now, the thing about the 49ers offense, do I want to start Marcus Goodwin or Pierre Thomas? Oh, Pierre Thomas. My God. Pierre Thomas. Do you guys remember Pierre Thomas, the running back for the Saints, when they won that Super Bowl? Pierre Thomas. Oh, my goodness. Pierre Garçon. Excuse me. Sorry, Mr. Garçon. I made a mistake. Anyway, so I was going to go ahead. I'm going to say Marcus Goodwin will probably be my start because of the potential of him breaking over the top of the defense. I think I like Marcus Goodwin to make a big play in order to get you fantasy points. So I'm going to go ahead and say start Marcus Goodwin. But the problem is okay, so here's the thing. I'm assuming they're going to start Pierre Garçon as the number 1 wide receiver, right? That's going to force Xavier Rhodes to come over here and clamp him up, right? If that's the case, you can't play Pierre Garçon. Now, if Marcus Goodwin has Xavier Rhodes on him, I still like Goodwin because his ability to just burn people, okay? So that's why I'm starting Goodwin this week as one of my starts, and Garçon sitting down. Okay, so the next game, right? We got the Tennessee Titans versus the Miami Dolphins, right? 100% start Kenny Stills. Now, you might be thinking, what? He's sitting on my bench. Why would I start Kenny Stills? He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver this week. Devontae Parker, below him, is injured, broke his finger, hasn't caught a ball in a couple weeks. Kenny Stills, when was that video that I mentioned Kenny Stills? I think it was one of my under the radar videos. Kenny Stills in those last couple of years has been pretty good for the Dolphins. And especially last season, I think he had somewhere around 8 touchdowns. The year prior, 5. He kind of normally sits around the range of 700, 800 receiving yards a season. I think because of the fact that Devontae Parker's hurt, there's no more Jarvis Landry. Kenny Stills is going to get the uptick of opportunity, targets, and production. So I would go ahead and start Kenny Stills at like a flex spot and maybe even a wide receiver 3 spot. On the other side, 100% start Corey Davis. Corey Davis is going to be the number 1 wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans, and he's going to be Marcus Mariota's number 1 target. Probably behind Delaney Walker here or there, but we'll see about that. Rashard Matthews, on the other hand, coming off injury, didn't really participate in majority of the preseason. I'd go ahead and give him a sit for this week. So let's go ahead and move on. Okay, this is an extremely interesting game, okay? We have the Jaguars versus the Giants, okay? So obviously, it was just broken. It was not obvious. I don't know why I said obviously. It was just broken. When was it broke? I think it was yesterday. The Keelan Cole, as you can see on the screen, and Dante Moncrief are going to be the number 1 and number 2 receivers for the Jaguars. This gives Keelan Cole the start for me, okay? If he's going to be the starter, 100% he can start this week for you. Okay, Dante Moncrief, on the other hand, he's more of a blocking wide receiver. I mean, he's a really good blocking wide receiver, right? He's got great talent. He's got good hands. He's produced in the past, but I like Keelan Cole over him. I don't know how much Blake Bortles is going to light up a Giants defense, but of the two, I like Keelan Cole to start this week. Odell Beckham, you have to start him, even though he has to go and play Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye and Barry Church over the top. I mean, he's going to have a hell of a time, right? But he's a talented receiver. He's going to have to find a way to make plays. I'd go ahead and start Odell Beckham and leave Sterling Shepard on the bench because he's going to get clamped up no matter who's on him. Okay, another interesting one, right? But this one's more of a... it has a caveat, okay? Let's put it that way. Antonio Brown must start. I mean, he's a first-round guy for a reason. He's consistent as hell. He's playing against the Cleveland Browns, for God's sake, right? Jarvis Landry must start, okay? He's going to inhale targets. He's going to be an extremely vital part and maybe the key focal point of this Browns offense this coming season, okay? Especially, I understand the concerns. People are saying, he played in the slot majority of the time in Miami. Now they're moving him to the outside spot. Either way, he's a Pro Bowl talent. He's an extremely, extremely athletic receiver. He can do whatever he wants. Wherever he plays, he's going to be successful. And Tyrod Taylor is going to light him up with a couple targets here and there. So, the backup receivers for both these teams. I don't like Josh Gordon this week. I know that, he's been saying publicly that he feels healthy. He feels 100%. And yes, he might not be starting. It's going to be Antonio Callaway in the first series. But people are considering, if Josh Gordon hasn't, if he's going to play, then he's going to pop off, right? I don't know about that, right? I would much rather go with the safety of another wide receiver too, like comparatively, right? Where did you draft Josh Gordon? If you drafted him later because people were afraid, then good on you, right? But usually people are ADP-wise, they have him around the range of a wide receiver too, right? So if you took him over like Golden Tate or Chris Hogan, Jarvis Landry, if you took him over those kind of guys, you have to start him now, right? You've put yourself in the hole, and you have to, basically, you got to play it. You got to play it through. You went out, you drafted this player at whatever you did, whether it was high or low. Well, actually, no, scratch that. If you drafted him high, okay, you have to start him, right? Because I don't think you'll probably have as much talent unless you got Kenny Stills on that bench, right? But if you draft him a little lower, you have a little bit of leeway because you probably have a little bit more depth at the wide receiver position. So, in my opinion, I'd rather sit Josh Gordon this week just to be safe. Now, Juju Smith-Schuster, okay? Why did I put an up arrow next to him? Why am I telling you to start him, okay? Le'Veon Bell is not going to play this week. It's for sure, okay? So I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for the Steelers to sit in the shotgun and throw the ball, and that's going to make Juju Smith-Schuster a little bit more valuable this week in PPR and half-point PPR leagues. In a standard league, I'd probably say, he's not too much of a start. because Antonio Brown's obviously going to be the number one wide receiver there. But if and when Le'Veon Bell does not start on Sunday and does not play on Sunday, Juju Smith is getting an opportunity bump, and he's getting targets coming his way that usually wouldn't come his way. So I like Juju Smith in the event that Bell does not play at all. Okay, next game. Tyreek Hill, 100% start. Okay, he is going to catch a bomb this week, I'm telling you. And if not, it doesn't matter because Patrick Mahomes loves this guy. He's going to fill him up with targets. And whoever the owner is, if you're in your league, right, I'm telling you, I regretted not drafting him in many of my leagues. But when I do have him, I'm happy. I think he's going to be good this week, especially against a little bit weaker of a Chargers secondary. Okay, Sammy Watkins, on the other hand, I mentioned this before to someone who commented below and asked, what do you think about Sammy Watkins? And I was thinking, I think Sammy Watkins is the fourth wide receiver target within this offense, right? Theoretically, it's going to be Tyreek Hill, then it's going to be Travis Kelce, probably then Kareem Hunt, and then Sammy Watkins is going to be the fourth option, right? Being that fourth option is a little bit difficult, comparatively to Mike Williams right here. No, I can't do it. Mike Williams right there. Right there. Hey, okay. Right there. Okay. Mike Williams right there. Comparatively to him, right? Keenan Allen, yes, he's the number one wide receiver, and you're going to start him, right? But the second target on this offense is Mike Williams, right? Because there's Antonio Gates, who's big, he's just old, he's messed up. There's a reason he didn't want to sign and play the preseason because he's old. He can't move anymore, right? They have Melvin Gordon, who's going to catch the ball, but not as much as Mike Williams will. So Mike Williams is for sure number 2 receiving option. Sammy Watkins is somewhere around the 3 or 4 range. Okay, so that's why I'm sitting Sammy Watkins. I'm definitely starting Mike Williams this week because of the Chiefs secondary is a little bit banged up. I think not as in hurt, but as in they got rid of Marcus Peters, and that's a mistake. And I don't know how they're going to be able to fill that spot. Yes, Ed Reed. Eric Berry's coming back. Ed Reed. What am I? I don't even understand where that came from. Eric Berry's coming back, but I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. I think Eric Berry's going to probably sit on top of tight ends and try to lock them down and help them run support. So otherwise, yeah. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams for sure starts. Tyreek Hill for sure start. All right. Let's move on to another. Okay, so let's be real, okay? Cowboys receivers, you shouldn't start any of them. Plain and simple. If I have to explain it, then I'm just going to be redundant and continue. Okay, so I've said it before. Dak Prescott with Ezekiel Elliott is a better quarterback. But are they going to, do we already know who the number 1 wide receiver of this offense is? No, right? Allen Hurns, Michael Gallup will probably be the top 2 when it comes to targets or production. I like Gallup this season as a bench stash or a backup that's going to only come in on bye week kind of scenarios. So yeah, I don't really like any of the wide receiver options for the Dallas Cowboys this week. On the other hand, right, Devin Funchess, start him. DJ Moore, start him. 100%. I'm not kidding. They're going to light up this Dallas defense, and they're going to do it efficiently. Okay, so here's the thing, right? So DJ Moore, if I had, let's say, for example, Nelson Aguilar or Kelvin Benjamin, or I had DJ Moore, who would I start, right? I would probably go with one of those, Nelson Aguilar or Kelvin Benjamin, because they're the number 1 receiving option of the team. Because over here with the Panthers, you have Greg Olsen, you have Christian McCaffrey, and then you have Devin Funchess, right? So there's a lot more competition. There's a lot more mouths to feed rather than the other guys who they're the only option, right? So I'd probably start those kind of guys if you're wondering, okay? So this DJ Moore start, it's more of a deep flex position start, just in case, I think he'll have a good week. I think he'll have 4 receptions, 60-something yards. I think that's, his baseline. Maybe he gets better. Maybe he does worse. We'll just have to wait and see. Okay, so the next game, the Cardinals versus the Redskins, right? Jamison Crowder for sure start as a flex, maybe a wide receiver 3. That's where I like him, especially in PPR leagues. Larry Fitzgerald, He's an absolute monster. Larry Legend, for sure start this coming week. On the other hand, these other receivers, right? We have Chad Williams, who's been named the number 2 receiver over Christian Kirk, which was kind of a surprise to me. But I'm not starting Chad Williams, and I'm not starting Paul Richardson. I don't really trust that they're going to have a lot of production compared to the 2 other guys above them, right? Because, like, in the Cardinal situation, it's going to be Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson catching the ball. And then there's going to be a little bit of sprinkles of Ricky Seals-Jones, who I'm going to talk about later today in the tight ends video. On the other side, it's going to be Chris Thompson catching the ball, Jamison Crowder catching the ball, maybe sometimes Richardson and Doxson, but then there's going to be Jordan Reed. So I like just Jamison Crowder and Larry Fitzgerald for sure starts this week. Okay, so here's the thing. Yesterday in my quarterbacks video, I said don't start Russell Wilson, don't start Case Keenum. Now, you might be thinking, now why are you telling us to start the receivers for these teams? Doug Baldwin is going to catch the ball a bunch, right? I'm not saying that, he's going to score. I'm just saying he might have 8 receptions for 80 yards throughout a game that's going to be slow and methodical, and everyone's going to be running the ball. Okay. Now, on the other side of the field, here's the thing. If you drafted Demaryius Thomas at whatever value you got him, you probably have to start him because the depth of your wide receivers is not going to be great. So you're going to have to start Demaryius Thomas. I probably like Emmanuel Sanders a couple spots higher this coming week. I like Emmanuel Sanders a lot, especially in the slot. But then again, I guess we're just going to have to wait and see what Case Keenum likes to throw the ball to, right? Last season was a lot of Adam Thielen outside. So, maybe Demaryius Thomas gets that uptick. Maybe it's Sanders. We'll just have to wait and see. Tyler Lockett, on the other hand, got paid a couple weeks back, or I think it was last week. He'll be a vital part of this offense, but I don't think he's going to make a big difference to the point where he's being started on your fantasy team consistently. For this week, I'm going to go ahead and say, don't start him because he's got to go against Chris Harris. And what's the other... is it Roby? I think it's Roby. Chris Harris and Roby? Yeah, I think so. The corners for the Denver Broncos. So it's going to be a little rough for him. We'll see how it goes. Okay. All right. So, it's pretty plain and simple, right? It's the Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. Allen Robinson, for sure start. He's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for the Bears. Devontae Adams, for sure start. Number 1 wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers. I'd say go ahead, start Randall Cobb as your wide receiver 3 if you have to, or your flex position. He's the number 2 receiver in a Aaron Rodgers-led offense. I like Randall Cobb this week, and I think he can have pretty good production. In the last couple of weeks, everyone's been saying, oh man, they're going to trade him. The GM came out and said, we're actively shopping Randall Cobb. If no one's already bit on that, then he's staying in Green Bay. I don't think they're going to cut him. He's in the 53-man roster already. So look for Randall Cobb in your slot or your wide receiver 3 slot to have good production this coming week against the Bears on Sunday Night Football. Can't wait. I'm ready, people. I'm ready for football to start. I am ready. I know you are too. And if you are, why don't you go ahead and scroll down below, click the subscribe button if you haven't already. Or like this video. Thank you. The little thumbs up thing. Okay, so the next game, right? Monday Night Football. For sure, start Golden Tate and Marvin Jones. I think they're both going to have good games. They're both going to be, last season they were both number 2 receivers. I think in a standard format, Marvin Jones was the number 1 receiver because all the touchdowns that he accumulated over the season. I don't even know where Marvin Jones came from last season. It was kind of a surprise, but a welcome one, I'll tell you that much, because I had him on a couple of my fantasy rosters sitting on the bench. Golden Tate for sure start. Marvin Jones for sure start. Here's the thing, right? Quincy Enunwa is the number 2 because Jermaine Kearse of the Jets is injured. I think he had surgery or some BS. I don't know, some abdominal thing. Robbie Anderson's going to be the number 1 wide receiver for this team. I see them probably having a tough time scoring early. They're going to get a little bit behind the Dolphins. Behind the Lions. In the second half, Sam Darnold's going to come out. He's going to need to throw the ball. I think Robbie Anderson gets a start for me in that wide receiver, maybe 2-3 flex range. So I like Robbie Anderson this week just because of the matchup, right? And I don't think the Jets are going to be amazing. I don't know if their defense is good enough to stop Matthew Stafford. So I would go ahead and say that Robbie Anderson's good. He's just like Kelvin Benjamin, right? And Nelson Aguilar. They're going to be the number one wide receivers on their offense. So why wouldn't they get the opportunity and the start from me, right? The last matchup, right? One that is a little bit, I wouldn't say it's confusing. It's more of a tough decision in my opinion, right? I like Brandon Cooks, right? And I like Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp probably maybe even more than Brandon Cooks. Yes, Cooks has got that speed. I know that Sean McVay wants to throw the deep ball this season, right? He brought in Brandon Cooks just for that reason. They traded a pick, they signed this man because they know for a fact that with Jared Goff, they can have a deep ball threat that's going to open up their offense that much more, right? I like Brandon Cooks this week, right? But Cooper Kupp is going to get 6 receptions for 50-something yards, and he's going to be a PPR monster, okay? So I would also start Cooper Kupp. Now, on the other side of the field, man, I don't know if I can trust Amari Cooper. I don't know, right? I might have to switch this and give Jordy Nelson the start. But the fact that I'm questioning it scares me already. If you have the option, I mean, majority of you, right, who have drafted Amari Cooper, you believe that Amari Cooper is going to be a great receiver this season, okay? I'm not going to shit on you and tell you, no, it's a terrible decision, because we're just going to have to wait and see what happens, right? Amari Cooper might come out and be what we all expect him to be, as in a good wide receiver, or he might come out and he might just drop another goose egg on us because he can't get away from Quib Talib or Marcus Peters, right? Or, LaMarcus Joyner. There's going to be people just clamped up on him. The way I see it, one of these receivers is obviously going to catch the ball because the Raiders are going to have a tough time moving the ball in the first half probably. So, I don't know. We'll see. I think if I was to choose between the two, I'd pick Amari Cooper over Jordy Nelson, and that would be my start. So that pretty much concludes my start and sits of the week for the wide receiver position for week 1 of the 2018 season. If you like this video, please go down below, like, comment if you have any questions, and subscribe. And until next time, thank you very much, guys, and I'll see you then.